There's a reason I haven't posted a cut challenge video in months. I've filmed many cut update videos. In fact, I've already filmed this video that you're watching right now. It's been a few weeks since I filmed it and I've been thinking about it almost nonstop. It feels like I filmed a video for you guys and I said, hey, I have the answer. This is the solution. And since then, I've realized that wasn't actually the answer at all. I couldn't release that final update video that I filmed and I couldn't release many of the episodes that I filmed along the way either. Now that I know what I know. If you're looking for more cut content, don't worry. I have tons of recipes, workouts, and tips to share and I will be uploading more cut content in the future, so if you'd like to see that, make sure to subscribe. But today I'm gonna share my 90-day cut and fat loss journey with you. I reached all of the goals that I set and I'm really happy with where I'm at right now, but if I could go back to the start of that 90 days, I would have done things very differently. Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Cadence and I'm so happy to have you. If you wanna see my starting point for this challenge, I will link my cut intro video in the description, and that's kind of where I talk about my goals, where my starting point is, and what I'm doing for the challenge. Now, not everything I did really stuck, so I'm gonna go through the things that I actually ended up doing consistently. The first thing is that I ended up walking or running a total of 7 miles or more throughout the challenge, whereas before I was averaging about 1 to 2 miles per week. I averaged 5 training sessions per week, and previously I was averaging 3 to 4. One of my goals was to increase my calorie expenditure from exercise by 1 to 200 calories a day. At the beginning of the challenge, I was averaging 1,900 calories burned per week from exercise, and at the end of the challenge, I was averaging 2,600, and that doesn't include any of my walking, just my runs and my workouts. My diet has totally transformed, and now about 60% of my diet is from whole, unprocessed, or minimally processed foods like fruits, veggies, and whole grains. I've also increased my protein intake significantly by having protein shakes, smoothies, and bars. Since I'm a picky eater and a vegetarian, that's just one of the simplest ways for me to make sure I'm hitting my protein goals. Some weeks I was really great about meal prepping. Other weeks I found it a lot easier to just get pre-made meals like salads or frozen meals from places like Trader Joe's. And I realized throughout the challenge that it's okay to not make every single thing homemade from scratch. Although you do have more control when you make stuff homemade, it just wasn't realistic for me to cook all of my meals and prep all of my meals every week. For many of us, that just isn't really attainable, so don't worry if you feel like you're in the same boat. I definitely was able to reach my goals even though I didn't cook everything myself. My changes were really gradual. For many of these changes, it took me multiple weeks or multiple attempts to actually get them to stick, and I layered them on slowly over time. So don't think that you need to just snap your fingers and suddenly be doing all of these things. The whole reason I started this challenge is after I started working full-time after college, I gained quite a bit of fat. I was eating lots of takeout and just like the easiest food possible. I felt really tired from spending a lot more time working than I did in college and having a lot less freedom and flexibility with my schedule. I was sleeping in, snoozing my alarm, and missing my morning workouts, and in the evenings I could never peel myself up off the couch to actually get my workout done at night. I was so much less active overall because I spent my entire day, some days I wouldn't even leave the house because I was able to work from home, and I would literally just sit at my desk working all day and not get up once. It was pretty crazy. I started saying, oh, I'm gonna lose weight. This is the week I'm going on a diet. This is the week I'm gonna start losing fat every week, and I would never follow through. In New Year's of 2023, I set a goal to lose fat, but I didn't take it very seriously, and I didn't see any changes in those first few months. So in the spring, I spent weeks researching science-based tools for sustainable, healthy fat loss while maintaining muscle, and most importantly, maintaining sanity. A lot of these diets can be pretty intense, and I wanted to make sure I maintained balance. I wanted to be able to go out to eat and get dessert with friends and family. I wanted to not be so hyper-focused on measuring every single little ounce of food that I was eating. I wanted to just maintain a lot of balance, and I wanted it to be something sustainable and long-lasting. I officially started my 90-day cut challenge in mid-March. There was so much excitement from starting the challenge that I had so much energy to put towards my new workouts, trying new recipes, and I was just so pumped up. The hardest part was that I felt really out of shape with my cardio, and I would almost get, I'll just be honest with you guys, I would get a little bit ashamed at the gym sometimes of how hard I was working, doing workouts that I thought should be easy or like weren't that difficult. I mean, we all go through it sometimes, but this is just a reminder to you watching that you should never be embarrassed of how hard you're working in the gym. I realized over time that first of all, nobody cared what I was doing. No one was paying any attention to me or looking at me. But second of all, you should be proud of your sweat and your heavy breathing. That means that you are pushing yourself and you are working hard, and that is amazing. That's something to be proud of, not to be ashamed of. So once I adopted that mindset, I found it a lot easier to continue improving my cardio. If you are a beginner at something, or you know, you're trying something for the first time, there's a little bit of a mental block to get past, but trust me, it's so worth it. Another challenge in the beginning was just swapping in less processed foods. I used to eat a lot of chips and crackers as snacks, and I started swapping in fruits and veggies, and let me tell you, when you want a bag of chips, carrots and hummus is just really not gonna cut it. Over time, I slowly started getting used to it and started to actually really enjoy it. Like, I'm not even lying, I'm not kidding. I did start to enjoy these snacks. Since I was so accustomed to these salty, sweet, super flavorful, ultra-processed foods, it was tough to make that swap in the beginning, but I promise it got easier over time. Then I blinked. I swear I blinked. In the 3 months the challenge was over. It snuck up on me so fast. So let's talk about my results. I lost 1.5 inches on my waist and I gained an inch around my hips, which is great for the ratios. On the scale, I lost 7 pounds, but the scale is a really inaccurate way to gauge fat loss because you can see so many fluctuations from things like water retention. If my muscle increased at any point throughout the process, the number on the scale would go up, and it doesn't really do a good job of measuring fat loss while maintaining or gaining muscle. So that's just kind of like for your information, but the scale was not something I used consistently to measure progress. I mostly used progress photos. One of the measures that I use to track my progress with cardio is my VO2 max as measured by my Apple Watch. If you're not familiar, VO2 max refers to how much oxygen your body can use during exercise. So a higher value usually equates to more aerobic fitness. So my goal was to increase my VO2 max, aka my body's ability to use that oxygen during exercise. Although my Apple VO2 max is still below the average for my age and gender, it was 30 at the start of the challenge and now it is 34.4, which I am super proud of that improvement. Keep in mind, all fitness trackers, including the Apple Watch, are imperfect, but since it's not really in the budget for me to go and get this tested professionally, this is just kind of one way to generally gauge that, although I wouldn't rely on these values being really precise. Also, I'm definitely not where I want to be in terms of cardio fitness. I feel like I still have a long way to go before I reach a point that I'm really proud of, but we all start somewhere, so I thought I would share those values with you. It's very personal as well. Genetics can impact it, so please don't compare your values to mine and think that that really means anything because it's very individual. So I would really suggest comparing your values for VO2 max and other fitness measures as well to your past self rather than to other people, because it's very individual and there's a lot of other things that can impact it besides just your fitness. So right at what was technically the end of my challenge, about a month ago, I filmed my final cut video. I talked about my progress, my tips. I talked a ton about my progress photos, where I saw progress, what I looked like. I mean, really the whole video was centered around these progress photos and videos that I had taken. I was super excited to share these science-based tools and how effective they could be. And so I wanted to show how effective they could be. A couple days later, I went on a lake trip with my friends, and one of my friends and I were jet skiing. And I put my phone up on a tripod. The wind blew, the tripod fell over, and it flung my phone into the water. I even had some of my friends up there watching my phone to make sure that that didn't happen, but unfortunately it happened so quickly. A couple seconds had passed before any of us really like snapped out of it and understood what happened, and the phone was gone. Down at the bottom of the lake, gone, 40 feet under, completely muddy, murky water, no hope of finding it. She is still there right now, rest in peace. I lost almost all of my challenge photos, my progress photos, my videos of myself doing different exercises, and all of the documentation of what I looked like throughout this process. It may sound crazy, but I'm kind of happy that I lost all of those photos and videos because it made me really rethink my goals and what I wanted to share with you all. Or at least that's what I'm trying to tell myself, because that phone was like over $1,000 and it was only a couple months old and I did not have insurance on it. So I really, truly, my success, having all of the things that I wanted, reaching all of my goals for the challenge, felt so empty. I've heard so many people say having abs doesn't make you happy, and I would always hear that and be like, yeah, sure, if I have abs, then I will be happy. And I was just like, that doesn't apply to me, I'm different. And although I wouldn't say I'm even close to shredded right now, like I do not have a six-pack, I understand what they meant. I like the way my body looks and I'm really happy with the progress that I've made, but honestly, most of the time I don't even remember that anything has changed about my body. I really only notice it a couple of times a day when I look in the mirror or when I'm getting dressed in the morning. And besides that, I forget that it even happened. Otherwise, I feel exactly the same. So genuinely, losing fat did not make me happy. And I wonder if sharing this with you will be helpful. I hope it will be, but I also know that for myself, I had to try it to really learn that lesson. The only changes in how I feel are in my biking and running ability. I'm now able to go on a hike with friends and talk at the same time without being super out of breath. I can run up and down the stairs in my house without getting super out of breath. I just feel a lot more confident in my cardio abilities, and that has made a big impact in my life, but the changes in the way that I look haven't. I realize the things I care about so much more than what I look like are my discipline, my commitment, how I feel, and my confidence in myself and my body's abilities. So I have a new goal. I want to fall in love with the process and the journey instead of the destination, because I realized my destination just wasn't right. I have a really, really exciting series coming up. So if you're interested in checking out my next fitness challenge and maybe joining me in that fitness challenge, make sure to subscribe. I'm so excited to share that with you guys. So right now I'm refocusing my diet and training routine on how I want to feel and the kind of person and athlete I want to be. My goal is to optimize my health and feel amazing and so confident in my body and its abilities. The interesting thing is that the actual actions I'm taking for my health haven't changed that much between the challenge and now, but the reason behind it has changed a lot. Something I struggled a lot with during this challenge was staying motivated. Like when I was in the middle of a tough workout and was trying to get myself to push further, or when I was trying to get myself to make a healthier food choice, I just would think back to like, oh, you know, you're doing this so that you can have abs. And that was never enough for me to push through those difficult or challenging times. I would just give up because my why wasn't good enough. In the last few weeks since I've shifted my mindset though, things have totally changed. Now I find it so much easier to push myself in those moments where things get challenging because I have a good reason behind it. When I'm on a run and I get tired, I think about how amazing I'm going to feel if I'm able to push through it and prove to myself that I can do it. When I'm on the last rep of a heavy weight set and I don't want to do it anymore, I remind myself of how lucky I am to have a body that I can train with. When I'm picking out fruits and veggies at the grocery store instead of chips, I remind myself how lucky I am that I can fuel my body with things that make me feel amazing. This mindset change has seriously changed everything. Things feel 100 times easier than they did before, and I've continued to lose fat since the end of the challenge. I was recently flying back from a family trip in Europe by myself, so I had a lot of time to think and ponder, and I thought a lot about what I wanted my life to look like and what I wanted to achieve in my lifetime and what I wanted to do, the experiences I wanted to have. And I spent hours thinking about this and writing things down, and not once did looking a certain way come into the equation. I realized that I want to play an infinite game where the goal is just to be able to keep playing the game, not to reach a certain destination or to win. Since I've had all of these realizations, I just cannot post all of my older cut episodes that I filmed, but don't worry, I'm gonna share my top tips from my cut challenge with you guys today, and I will continue to release cut content for recipes, workouts, lifestyle tips, anything and everything that you guys are interested in, so make sure to leave a comment down below and let me know what you would like to see. Although I had this epiphany about meaningful goals for myself, I don't think there's anything wrong with aesthetic goals. I've had them, I know many people out there have them, and I think they are totally fine, as long as of course you're doing it in a way that is healthy and safe for your mental and physical health. I think it's super important to put these evidence-based fat loss tools out into the world so that people who do have aesthetic goals can use these tools rather than following crash diets or doing anything crazy that could seriously harm their health. So that's one of the reasons why I'm sharing these tips, even though I myself have had a little bit of a shift in mindset and approach. The first thing, I was able to lose fat without counting any calories, which I know is a huge concern for a lot of people, myself included. So I have a full video on calorie counting and some of the issues with it. If you want to check that out, I will go into a lot more detail about calorie counting and what you can do instead, but I'll share one piece of advice that helped me a lot during my cut challenge that I also talk about in that video, which is eat less processed foods. They're more voluminous and they tend to make you feel fuller. They have tons of fiber. They're usually less calorie dense than ultra processed foods, and they have lots of nutrients in them, and they just really make you feel amazing. I don't eat even close to 100% unprocessed foods. Like I said, I hover around 60%, but it really depends on the day or the week. It varies a lot. The cool thing is I was able to reach my goals for the challenge without eating 100% according to this diet. I would go out once or twice a week with my boyfriend, my friends, my family, and we would get pizza or pasta or ice cream or, you know, iced coffees and things like that. The only thing I sort of counted was protein, protein, and I just had a general idea of how much I was supplementing, just because in order to maintain muscle, it's really important that you get enough protein. And as a very picky eater and a vegetarian, it's quite hard for me to do that without supplementing with protein bars, shakes, and smoothies. So I would track about 50 to 70 grams per day of supplemented protein just for me personally to hit my goals. But you can calculate the exact amount that you would want based on your body weight. I will throw that equation in the description. The next thing I found was that slow changes are more effective and easier. So going slow was super helpful for me. It's really important, especially when you're going slow, to take progress photos and measurements so that you don't trick yourself into thinking you're not making progress when you are. When progress is slow, between day to day, you probably won't see any changes, but it's over those weeks, months, or years that you're gonna be able to really see a huge difference. So make sure that you're tracking those differences. It's also really easy to think that you haven't made progress when you actually have when you're going slow. Don't let fluctuations like bloating from your period or from a salty meal the night before trick you into thinking you're not making progress. I always recommend comparing progress photos at least a few weeks or a month apart rather than day to day or week to week. Give yourself a little bit of time to account for those fluctuations. Rest and sleep were so important for me. I ended up taking about a total of 2 weeks completely off the gym throughout the challenge, just because I was sick or really exhausted and needed that extra rest time, and that ended up working really well for me. I think that was actually really important to my overall progress and not burning out and quitting. I also found for me that sleep was essential. So on days where I didn't sleep enough, I found it really hard to complete my workouts. So over time, I started going to bed earlier and earlier, adding in naps throughout the day when I could, like on my lunch break or in the evenings after work. And I found myself having more and more energy for my workouts, for my healthy eating, and everything going on with my life. It made a huge difference for me. The next thing I found was that restricting foods made it so much harder and made me more likely to binge. I wish I could go back and tell myself, have that s'mores, have a slice of pizza if you really want it. It is so much better to enjoy the food that you're craving in moderation than to tell yourself you can't have it, and then eventually you end up having it anyway after eating a bunch of other random stuff that doesn't satisfy your craving. Or unfortunately, I have been known to overeat a little bit when I tell myself something's off limits. The science tells us that having what we actually want in moderation is much more effective for curbing that craving. Restricting tends to make us much more likely to binge, which I can tell you I have experienced this firsthand. The next thing I learned was that listening to my body and adjusting my workouts accordingly made my workouts much more effective overall. Instead of trying to do an intense session on a day where I was really exhausted, which would put me out of commission for a lot longer, instead I would take it easier and I would push myself harder the next time I was feeling good. I used to kind of convince myself that I needed to push myself at 100% every single workout, and that if I wasn't doing that, I was just being lazy. But let me tell you, there's a difference between being lazy and listening to your body. I've learned how much you can actually improve when you listen to your body, and if you don't trust your own intuition and you want something more objective, you can do a CO2 tolerance test, which I will link in the description, some instructions on how to do that. And I also recently bought a grip strength tester, and grip strength is a really excellent way to see how recovered you are, and I can adjust my workouts based on my grip strength. Those were some of my top tips, but there's just way too much to fit into this one video. So if you're interested in seeing more of my tips and recommendations and things that I learned, make sure to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you'd like to see more from my channel, hit subscribe, and I will see you next time.